Okay, check 1 2, check 1 2, testing, testing. We are live, finally. It is a bit of a late start today, but as I've said before, it's going to be a weird schedule this time of the year because of numerous things going on. But we are going to talk for probably a briefer stream than normal about something very important, though, which is a letter that was recently released discussing integrated information theory, and it was labeling it as pseudoscience. So integrated information theory is a theory that I was actually going to do a specific episode on, and still plan to, but this letter has come out, and I think that the letter itself is more important to discuss right now than even integrated information theory itself, because the implications of this letter pertain to many theories, not just integrated information theory. And so we'll speak a bit about integrated information theory, enough to get the context of the letter, but this letter that has been released, which is linked below, but we will also go through it and read it, it has been signed by numerous academics and has a very eerie tone to it. So we're going to talk about it. It's very interesting. Please hit the like button, though. It really helps boost us in the algorithm. Comment any questions that you may have in the chat, and we will get into it. So, this is the letter. Actually, let's not get into the letter. Let's get into integrated information theory. So this is on, not Wikipedia, but let's try this. Wikipedia. And then integrated information theory. Okay. So I have Scholarpedia and Wikipedia. I guess Scholarpedia is peer-reviewed. So, but let's look at Wikipedia because that's more common. So this is the Wikipedia page for integrated information theory, and it is it gets into exactly what this is. I'm just looking at the chat. Sorry, Jeremiah. Top of the morning. Top of the morning. It's about what to do with NPCs. Okay. Well, we'll get into it. So, integrated information theory proposes a mathematical model for consciousness of a system. It comprises a framework ultimately intended to explain why some physical systems, such as the human brain, are conscious. So, first of all, it doesn't matter that much, but integrated information theory is an attempt to be a mathematical model of consciousness. There are many theories out there that are attempting to do so. I think that to some degree it's not exactly the right approach. I would say that you need a theory of consciousness that explains mathematics in a way that even more so than a theory of mathematics that explains consciousness. So, and this is because I believe consciousness is even sub-mathematical. If it's fundamental, then it doesn't get explained by mathematics. It explains mathematics. So, and sentient singularity theory certainly takes this approach to it. But regardless, I respect the attempt, and I don't think that a lot of there's so many assumptions built into every theory, but there are some built into integrated information theory that are I think are incorrect, but I still think that it's a respectable attempt, and I could be wrong, but and it's certainly something that's they're trying something semi-unique. So, but it says here an attempt to explain why some physical systems, such as the human brain, are conscious. I don't know if a human brain really is conscious. If a human being is conscious, but I don't know about a human brain. But and to be capable of providing concrete inference about whether a physical system is conscious, to what degree. There's assumptions built into that I think are incorrect, but still. That does not mean that I think that it is pseudoscience, but even though I would say it's incorrect. And it's actually I would say it's a good thing that I disagree a little bit with some base assumptions of integrated information theory, because I think it allows for me to give a little bit more of, even a more honest look at this current situation, because I can say that I think that it is incorrect while also not calling it pseudoscience. So, and I think that that's going to be what we're going to talk about here. But according to integrated information theory, a system's consciousness, what it is like to subjectively be conscious, is conjectured to be identical to its causal properties, what it is like objectively. Therefore, it should be possible to account for the conscious experience of a physical system by unfolding its complete causal powers. That is kind of, more interesting, but still, despite significant interest, integrated information theory remains controversial and has been widely criticized, including for its unfalsifiable pseudoscience. Wow, that was recently added, wasn't it, to this... let's see, when was that added, actually? Morena Lanero, 20th of September, 2023. Consciousness theory slammed as pseudoscience, sparking an uproar in Nature. Okay, so proponents counter that that there is some experimental support for it, but the fundamental validity of some of the tests used is questioned by some critics. So there's a lot for integrated information theory to overcome. As I've stated already, I think that some of its base assumptions are setting it up for failure, but it's still, I would not call it pseudoscience, even if it, and I could be wrong, but even if I'm correct, it's not pseudoscience, it's just wrong. And the question is, what is pseudoscience? And pseudoscience is a term that I have been, my work has been labeled as well, and I do understand that. And I've stated this before in my my Theories of Everything, the how-to guide video, which if you haven't seen it is linked below, and I think it's very important, but for context. But here you can see that this is a very common label for theories that are attempting to be a fundamental theory, and there's a specific reason for it. So let's look at this first clip is of me. Is taking place. The methodology that you have to use and develop in order to describe a fundamental theory is so alien to academia that most will dismiss it as pseudoscience. If your theory appears to be consistent with many things that we currently do understand in science, the existence of your theory appears to them to invalidate their expertise and all the efforts and resources that they put into getting there. So I understand why they're pissed, but it doesn't actually invalidate. So there's two things here. One is that this label of pseudoscience is thrown around a lot, and for theories that are attempting to understand consciousness or that are attempting to be a fundamental theory, and the reason why is because the methods and just general, even base level approaches that you have to take when you are attempting to describe fundamental reality or theory of consciousness, which I think that they are the same thing, which is why they run into a lot of the same problems, is completely alien to compared to all other methods that we use in our current scientific fields. And the reason why is because you're attempting to describe a pattern that you can't escape. It's found everywhere, and it's coming from you. And if consciousness is fundamental, which it appears to be, and logically that I think is the inevitable conclusion. I do explain that more in that same video earlier on in the video, but these patterns are inescapable, and you can't. And if they are everywhere, you can't test everywhere. So you can't even falsify them in the normal sense. So when people say things like what is written here on this Wikipedia page of, despite significant interest, integrated information theory remains controversial and has been widely criticized, including that it is unfalsifiable pseudoscience. And so in this video that I posted for Kirchheim Mungel's Theories of Everything YouTube channel's consciousness and physics video contest, I explain that you cannot falsify or truly prove a theory of everything if it is a theory that is about a fundamental pattern that occurs everywhere. And Stephen Wolfram has said this as well. You have to look for constant confirmation, not falsifiability, because it's unfalsifiable, not just because it's this weird, vague, incorrect, proposal. It's because it occurs everywhere. And so when something is fundamentally true, guess what it is? It's unfalsifiable. And so we misunderstand this when we're trying to understand consciousness theories or fundamental theories, when we try and use the same exact tactics that we use in the rest of science, which is we look for falsifiability. And therefore, we also look for proof. That's the other side of that coin. But if you can't falsify it, then you can't prove it at the same time. Because if it's a fundamental pattern that occurs everywhere, you can't actually test everywhere. But you can constantly test and look for repeated confirmation, repetitive confirmation. And that's really what you're looking for in a fundamental theory or a theory of consciousness, is continuous confirmation. You're not looking for falsifiability. You're not looking for proof, because you can't get either. I would argue that if you can get either, then you probably don't have a complete theory of consciousness or a truly fundamental theory. And so this is a huge obstacle for either of these two theories to, which I as I said before, I think that they're one theory, a fundamental theory, and a theory of consciousness, I think are the same thing. But they, even integrated information theory appears to kind of make the same kind of assumption, I believe. But this is a huge obstacle to overcome. And before you prove your theory, or not prove, but before you present a theory like this, you also have to, or while you present a theory like this, you also have to explain why you have to change your tactics with it. And nobody's really doing that. And there's a few people that are trying to. I've seen Stephen Wolfram do it, like I've said before. But this is a very critical component of presenting a theory of consciousness or a fundamental theory, or a theory that is both. And so just because something is unfalsifiable doesn't make it pseudoscience. The most fundamental truths that exist would, by definition, be unfalsifiable. It's super logical. It's not even logical it's not even just logical to make this assumption. It is super logical. It supersedes logic. It is the context of logic itself. And this is a very, very difficult kind of idea for many academics to wrap their minds around, because they really are, most of them at least, not all of them, but most of them are not original thinkers. And this is because it's not their fault, really. It's that our system has selected for these people to be the accredited people when it comes to determining and judging any new proposed scientific theories. And, I don't know if it's even, maybe we don't call these theories of consciousness or fundamental theories scientific theories. They're metaphysics theories, really, but if they're metaphysics theories, then maybe they're super scientific theories or something. Like, maybe we need a new term so that people just stop assuming that it requires the same exact approaches and follows the same exact rules. And but this is a huge obstacle, and I've faced it myself with sentient singularity theory, as countless times been called pseudoscience. And I honestly think that the term pseudoscience is kind of pseudoscientific in and of itself. It is not it does not follow even itself the same kind of spirit of what science is supposed to be, which is the search for truth. And that search, it's not even just what it doesn't. It kind of brings us into the realm of science is truth instead of science is the search for truth, because anything that's pseudoscientific is therefore not true, and anything that is scientific is true. And so this is not actually the right approach or the right way to label science or the right definition for science. Science is it's a number of things. It's a method of experimentation. It is kind of a method of approach. It is also a language in and of itself. It's a kind of it's kind of got its own terminology that is used within it, and but it's also it is all of these things together as an approach to determining truth or a search for truth. It's a path that is a search for truth. And but when we call something pseudoscience, we are basically calling it false. And it's kind of the same exact thing as saying blasphemy. It's like it's science. At that point, science has become this structured, it's a religion basically, but I don't even know if I don't like that term either. So, but I see why it kind of comes off as that, and but I don't even know if like our religions would accurately should be described in that way. But I get it, and but so yeah, I mean that means that basically science has become people's religion. But of course it has, and that's not a new idea. People say scientism all the time, but when you're basically saying that's pseudoscience, you're basically saying that's blasphemy. That's really what it is. And but let's get into this a bit. So pseudoscience on Wikipedia consists of statements, beliefs, or practices. See what I mean by science? That means science has to have multiple facets to it too. If pseudoscience has multiple facets to it, statements, beliefs, or practices. So some practices, some statements, some beliefs. That's crazy right here, though, this part. But this I can kind of get behind in some ways, but even then, not really. That claim to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. Pseudoscience is often characterized by contradictory, exaggerated, or unfalsifiable. Again, there we go. Anything that's unfalsifiable is therefore pseudoscience. Claims. Reliance on confirmation bias rather than rigorous attempts at refutation. Lacking of openness to evaluation by other experts. Wow, that's, very often the people who use this term are very much themselves guilty of that. Absence of systematic practices when developing hypothesis, and continued adherence long after the pseudoscientific hypothesis has been experimentally discredited. So let me ask you a question. How can it be experimentally discredited if it is also unfalsifiable? It just shows that pseudoscience in and of itself has just got its own numerous problems in its definition. And that's because it's just used to label a heretic. It's used to label a heretic. It's used to label blasphemy. And, but I don't even mean real blasphemy, or I mean to be a heretic against the narrative, the academic mainstream narrative, to commit blasphemy against a core kind of assumed fundamental belief in science. And one of those is kind of base materialism, where there is matter at the base of reality. It is the fundamental the most fundamental nature of reality is that of unconscious, inanimate matter. That's the kind of important part of it, because you can't just say matter, because what is matter, you know? And I think that that's an important question. But it's actually a much better question than what is consciousness. One of those we understand firsthand what consciousness is, or who consciousness is, you know. But it is a different question to ask what is matter. But it's a better question to ask what is matter. But the assumption that matter at the fundamental level is fundamental reality, and it is inanimate. That is kind of this. It is almost a requirement to be taken seriously in the academic scientific fields these days, and that basically means that you have to be a self-described atheist, but really an anti-theist, because any kind of thought that consciousness is fundamental, people will start labeling it as panpsychist. There are some issues with a lot of the kind of details of how panpsychism is described, which is people will be like, yeah, everything is conscious. So is this pen conscious? Yeah, the pen is to some degree conscious. I would say that that's not true. This pen is not conscious, but that doesn't mean that the at a fundamental level, consciousness isn't fundamental. So, but this, you need a framework that kind of makes that clear as to what is conscious and what is not and why. And sentient singularity theory is an attempt to do that through showing kind of lineages of sentience. But but whenever somebody says panpsychism, it's also true that inevitably that does lead to theism. It has to, because it means that the universe itself, or existence itself, is a single, because there's one existence, is a single consciousness. And if that's the case, that's theism. And we can't have that, can we? So there's a lot going on with that. But I want to get into the letter now, because this letter shows very obviously why this term pseudoscience really exists more than anything. And I would say the only true pseudoscience would have to be basically where somebody knows that what they're spewing is BS and they're just conning you. And so the only way in which pseudoscience could truly be accurately defined and labeled is if you knew, and you would have to know, and because they'd admitted it, or you'd have to be the person themselves, because you can't know somebody's motives unless they tell you, if you're not that person. But if somebody's actively, intentionally misleading people and spewing BS and calling it science, which means they're really just, you don't have to call that pseudoscience. You just call them a liar. Just say this is lies. And that's fine. We still don't need the term. But, so I have this paper. I don't know if actually I can pull it up easily, but it's fine. But in this, I have this paper on integrated information theory somewhere on my computer, and it's written by the people who are promoting the theory, and in it, it says it is one of the leading contenders for a theory of consciousness. And so what happened, I believe, is that the media read this, and they just repeated it, because the media is a bunch of stochastic parrots, as people have been calling AI lately. And that's true also of a lot of academics. And so now we just have parrots parroting each other and getting pissed at each other about it. So, so this is the letter, though. It's called Integrated Information Theory of Consciousness as Pseudoscience. I don't know if we can actually... Having trouble here. Hold on. I will just pull it up right here. This is easier for everybody to see, but this is the letter, and the link is below. So, integrated information theory is an ambitious theory, but some scientists have labeled it as pseudoscience. According to integrated information theory, an inactive grid of connected logic gates that are not performing any useful computation can be conscious. First of all, I don't know exactly whether or not that's a true representation of what integrated information theory is assuming, but still, possibly even more so than humans. So this is just, these assumptions are just like ridiculous. There is no, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll get into that later. But there's just some incorrect assumptions being made. Organoids created out of petri dishes, as well as human fetuses at very early stages of development, are likely conscious according to the theory. On some interpretations, even plants may be conscious. These claims have been widely considered untestable, unscientific, magicalist, in quotes, or a departure from science as we know it, given its panpsychist commitments. Wow, okay. Until the theory has, as a whole, not some hand-picked auxiliary components trivially shared by many others or already known to be true, is empirically testable, we feel that the pseudoscience label should indeed apply. Regrettably, even the recent events and given the recent events and highlighted public interest, it has become especially necessary to rectify this matter. If integrated information theory, IIT, is either proven or perceived by the public as such, it will not have a direct impact on clinical practice concerning coma patients. It will not only have a direct impact on clinical practice concerning coma patients, but also a wide array of ethical issues ranging from current debates on AI sentience and its regulation to stem cell research, animal and organoid testing, and abortion. But consensus is not that consensus is not that integrated information theory and its variants decidedly lack intellectual merit, but with so much at stake, it is essential to provide a fair and truthful perspective on the state of the theory. As researchers, we have a duty to protect the public from scientific misinformation. Oh my gosh. Therefore, we hope to make clear that despite its significant media attention, integrated information theory requires meaningful empirical tests before being heralded as leading or a well-established theory. Its idiosyncratic claims and potentially far-reaching ethical implications necessitate a measured representation. Wow. Okay, so first of all, I actually agree that it is important that we recognize that just because something is a leading theory doesn't mean that it has been confirmed to any kind of rigorous or kind of constant degree. But at the same time, look at how they talk about string theory. You know, it's like string theory is constantly talked about as the leading theory, and yet it has not been testable in any real world physical way, which makes it not really physics. I'm not saying that the math isn't, impressive. I'm not even saying that in the right context, string theory's manifold structures wouldn't be physically relevant. I actually think that they would, but that's not the point. The point is that this theory is being treated differently than string theory, even though neither one is really confirmed. And it's not that I think that we should be calling this theory a leading theory that is, proving accurate or anything like that, because I don't think that it is proving out in a way that is giving us, what it might be an attempt to be. But we can get it. That's for another time. The point is to ask, why is this one being treated differently than string theory. And the reason why is because in string theory, it is inconsequential. We're so used to physics being inconsequential. Physics was not inconsequential 100 years ago. It led to the creation of extremely consequential developments in nuclear physics. Weapons and fission power and hydrogen bombs, and there were serious consequences to physics, good and bad. And we're so used to it having no consequences for decades and decades that now when a theory appears like even the implications that it might have are not just consequential, they're like super consequential because they impact how we even judge things. They're not impacting us in a way yet as far as like more, powerful weapons or more, free energy or something, whatever that means. But new energy solutions, they're impacting us in a different way. These theories, these new fundamental theories that, or theories of consciousness, and that even if they do also lead to those other things, it's very clear that at first, you don't even need to know whether or not the theory is accurate to know that whether or not it is, if it is accurate, it's going to lead to certain implications that impact how we judge morally certain concepts. And this is something that I've been saying for a while. And so I'm going to play another clip here to show, also from my Theories of Everything, the how-to guide. Toe stepping does not stop there, though, guys. Even worse than stepping on the toes of academia is that a fundamental theory has the potential to step on the toes of every individual in the world. And the reason for this is, like I said, it is not just a theory of physics. In fact, it's not just a theory that encapsulates what we currently call the hard sciences. It is a theory that contextualizes even the things that we consider the soft sciences, the social sciences. The answers to these questions are usually assumed to be nothing more than personal choice that is a matter of preference. But if these questions have concrete answers, it means that our questions regarding morality, individual responsibilities, collective responsibilities, and meaning, and economics, and nationality, and many of these other social structures have real answers and are much more concrete than is currently assumed in common culture. And while these patterns can give us direction, if this is true, it is bound to step on everyone's toes. And the reason for this is simple. No one likes being told what to do. As I state... Bingo. Guys, I don't like to brag, but I've been saying it. Okay? Breaking out the Independence Day meme. I've been saying it, and I've been saying it. This is inevitable. And this is something that every single theory that is a fundamental theory is truly fundamental, or attempts to be such, or a theory of consciousness, which I would say that they're both the same, will have to face, is that they have moral implications. I'm not even saying that what integrated information theory is being claimed to suggest is correct, where it's, saying that some things are more conscious than a human, logic gates or whatever. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that trees are, it says here, trees are going to be assumed to be sentient under integrated information theory. That is usually, that for the most part, that is against what my theory seems to imply. But my theory does imply that the cells would be sentient, and that a fetus is sentient. And by the way, having a pregnant wife with an unborn baby inside them constantly moving around, then when you can see it, I don't know it's clear that this letter is afraid of the political consequences of certain implications of this theory. And I'm not even saying that I'm not even going to make a political argument about any of this right now. I'm just going to say that, yes, it is true that these theories will have certain implications that do imply certain moral assumptions. And that is true. You know? Some of them will claim trees are sentient. Some of them will claim trees are not. But they will all, any theory that is about the nature of fundamental existence is going to be about consciousness. It has to be. And any of these theories goes against, if they are claiming that consciousness is fundamental, it goes against everything that our current academic scientific mainstream narratives are built on. And so not only is it pissing everybody off because it's going to have certain moral implications that imply certain things, actions are moral or certain actions are immoral, which, as it says in this clip that I just showed, nobody likes being told what to do. And I'm not even claiming that we tell people what to do, but you don't even want to be told what is right and wrong. Okay? That's different than just telling people what to do. Even if you don't tell people what to do, nobody wants to be told what's right and wrong, because if you tell them what's right and what's wrong, and now they feel judged for whatever it is that they choose, and by themselves and by others. Nobody wants that. But we already, there's no escaping that. We already have that. That already exists. There's nothing new coming from this, really. But it's just concretizing certain, it could seem to concretize certain moral apparent realities, or certain moral implications, I'll say. And this is the real reason why, this is one of the real reasons why why a theory like this is being labeled as pseudoscience, whereas none of these other physics theories that have nothing to do with consciousness as we know it, or as is stated in the theory, even though I would say even string theory's manifold structures are about consciousness, but they're not claiming that. But because that's not the case, and they're not claiming that, we don't call it pseudoscience, we don't morally attack it, we don't feel a duty to protect the public. Okay? But we do if it's with any theory about consciousness, and this was always going to be the biggest hurdle. The next biggest hurdle, though, and you can see this in this letter, where it says, here, we feel that's, okay, it says, given its panpsychist commitments, blah, 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 we feel that the pseudoscience label should indeed apply. You don't even need to know the rest of this. Because this stuff is not applied to any other type of theory in this circumstance. It doesn't matter. It's just, given its panpsychist commitments, we feel that the pseudoscience label should indeed apply. Why is that the case? Why? Let me tell you why. Because of two reasons, but the main one is that the orthodox narrative of the academic establishment is that of matter that is inanimate is fundamental. What this means is that every single academic who didn't see this coming, knows nothing about their field, is how they're going to feel. Not saying that that's actually the case. They have a lot memorized, and that a lot of that stuff that they've memorized is actually important. But they didn't fundamentally understand their field, and that is going to become clear. These theories, these fundamental theories or theories of consciousness, are not just adding a new discovery on top of what we already know. These, because of their fundamental nature, they are not theories stacked on top of theories that we currently have. They are theories that all of our other theories must be built on, which means that changing how we fundamentally understand existence to be has a rippling implications across all the theories stacked on top of it. Okay? It's not the same as just, we made a new discovery today. Black holes are actually, this, like this, or they have this property, or whatever. It's all the context of all of our current theories must change. And that undermines everyone's expertise. It seems to them, and to people watching. It does. And it doesn't completely undermine their expertise, but to some degree it does, a little bit. But that doesn't completely discredit everything that they've done, but I understand why they don't like it. For one, people are going to be like, how come this took so long? And how come you've told us something different forever? For the last 50 years or whatever. And they're going to also be like, why did I believe this for the last 50 years? And we have to look at like all of this stuff that led into this fundamental assumption being totally incorrect and why. But we already have to do that because that is, we're already disregarding firsthand experience when we're looking at all of these things. I'm going to do a stream possibly next week on Kirchheim Mungel's stream that he did with, I think Edward Frankel is his name. And it was a great stream. And in it, he talks about how science has abandoned firsthand information as being like a important component of understanding. And he's right. And it has destroyed our ability to understand basically anything, which is why we have these very obviously incorrect assumptions once you start to break down from a first principles perspective or build up from a first principles approach a model of reality, and you've disregarded everything else that you've learned in school and stuff like that, and you realize like, wow, we missed some huge things. We've prioritized secondhand information above firsthand information. It has screwed up our processes of sense making, and but so that's another reason why these theories are going to have huge problems. Anything with panpsychist commitments. Panpsychism. Let's just look at the Wikipedia. Panpsychism. Panpsychism. In the philosophy of mind, panpsychism is the view that the mind and mind-like aspect of is a fundamental and ubiquitous feature of reality. It is also described as a theory that the mind is a fundamental feature of the world which exists throughout the universe. It is one of the oldest philosophical theories and has been ascribed to philosophers including Plato, Thales, I think Spinoza, etc. It's funny because I've even heard, Michio Kaku say, I believe in the God of Spinoza, the God of Einstein, which is like, I don't know, does that mean he's panpsychist? In the 19th century, panpsychism was the default philosophy of mind in Western thought, but it saw a decline in the mid-20th century with the rise of logical positivism. Recent interest in the hard problem of consciousness and developments in the field of neuroscience, psychology, and quantum physics has revived the interest in panpsychism in the 21st century. Logical positivism. later called logical empiricism, and both of which have been known as neo-positivism. This is the, I've thought about going back and getting my PhD in philosophy, but this is what keeps me from it, is this endless like labels. Interesting. Okay, well, I don't know. Whatever. We'll look more at that later. But these are the problems. Is that anything that has any kind of inkling of panpsychism, but it's not just panpsychism. It's like the problem, people will say, well, the problem with panpsychism is you think that this pen is conscious, and it's pretty apparently not. And I would agree that is the biggest problem with more general panpsychist ideas. But there are more specific panpsychist ideas, and like sentient singularity theory, which would explain why that's not conscious, but why consciousness can still be, ever present and fundamental. And but at the same time, it's not. It is that any theory that places consciousness as a fundamental feature is going to have to overcome exactly what integrated information theory is now running up against. It's not anything specific to integrated information theory that has that is important about this letter. It's the specific things that make them pissed enough to write this letter and have so many people sign it. I don't know how many people have signed it, but a lot. So, given its panpsychist commitments, we feel that the pseudoscience label should indeed apply here, until it is empirically testable. The problem with panpsychism is not that it isn't empirically testable, or the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of existence. It's that it's always apparently true to you. You can't escape holding consciousness as a fundamental assumption, because you have to assume you're conscious because you experience it. Which means that to you, even if it's not objectively true, it's subjectively true. So it's even if it's not objectively true, you can't actually escape this. And there is logical evidence to suggest that it is objectively true as well. But it's self-evidently subjectively true. And that, how can you ignore that? Because to embrace it is to recognize that it implies that it is also objectively true. And if that's the case, then our entire scientific establishment has been fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally wrong. Not just, they were wrong about some small thing. It's like the context of everything that they've told us is wrong. The context of everything that they've told us is wrong. Do you think that they want, that they're as a collective whole, that the majority of them are humble enough to admit that? No. And not only that, like I said, it will inevitably imply certain moral implications. And you think that they want that? Do you think anybody wants that, really? No. Even the people that believe that that's true, like me. I understand emotionally the reason why you would not want certain moral implications to be true, because it implies that you have to judge yourself and that others have to judge certain things, even if they don't judge you. Or you have to judge things. You don't have to judge people necessarily, but you have to judge actions all of a sudden. And And we have to start talking about it, like, in a humble and different way than we currently do, which is this, like, you know, you live your truth, I live my truth, and everybody has to, you know, do what they think is right. And it's like, okay, yes, that's always true, but it implies that we can actually talk about what is true, not just what is your truth versus my, and you know, that you have a truth and that I have a truth, and if they're different, it's fine. It's like, now we have to both agree that one of us might be right and one of us might be wrong on certain things. Maybe not everything, but on certain things. And the admission of even that is a frightening thing to a lot of people who haven't already reached that. And so there are hurdles to overcome, and these are probably the three main hurdles. One of them is the apparent invalidation and undermining of the academic establishment that any theory of consciousness that implies that consciousness is fundamental would have, and also that, you know, it has an uphill battle of being morally frightening, morally uncomfortable. And finally is the logical issues that it has to overcome, which is that we have to recognize that it's not going to follow the same rules. It's not going to be a falsifiable theory if it's about a fundamentally true and existent structure that it's ever present. You can't falsify it. You realize how crazy that is? Is that if something is fundamentally true, you cannot falsify it. It doesn't even matter if it's about consciousness or not. If something's fundamentally true about the nature of existence itself, it cannot be falsified because it's always true. Any experimental attempts that you make will be within existence, and therefore will follow the rules of existence, and therefore whatever is fundamentally true about existence will always be fundamentally true. You cannot falsify it. So here it's, this is exactly everything that I have said in my Theories of Everything, the how-to guide video, which is linked below. Everything that I said in that video is now being displayed by the academic establishment, I would say, as being true. They are the hurdles with this. They are. And what's amazing to me is they are emphatically and specifically listed in this letter, where it says, given its panpsychist commitments, we feel that the pseudoscience label should indeed apply. Yes, I'm leaving out the middle where it says, you know, not until the theory as a whole, not just some hand-picked auxiliary components trivially shared by many others or already known to be true, is empirically tested. So some of these things are already known to be true. Some of their implications are already known to be true. But that isn't evidence for the theory or for panpsychism. It's discrediting of it somehow, which makes no sense. And they're already labeling these other things that have been shown by as being trivially shared by many others, hand-picked auxiliary components. They're so much just labeling and kind of dismissing in this statement. We feel the label of pseudoscience should indeed apply. Is that a scientific determination that it's pseudoscience? Ridiculous. You can't even just say, this theory has been in the media, you know, hyped up too much and is not as you know, confirmed as it is being represented to be, and it still requires a lot of testing, and you know, it's far from confirmed. You could put that out, but you didn't. They put out, it's pseudoscience because it implies that consciousness is fundamental, which is what it's saying, and also and then it says this, that as researchers, we have a duty to protect the public from scientific misinformation. And the reason why that they put this in here is because it says, if integrated information theory is either proven or perceived by the public as such, it will not only have a direct impact on clinical practice concerning coma patients, which that's obviously like a moral concern, like that's already a moral concern, but also a wider range of ethical issues that's already an ethical issue. I don't know why they're like saying it's not that it will just impact this ethical issue of people in a coma, are their lives valuable? It's also that it will impact issues regarding AI sentience and its regulation and stem cell research and animal and organoid testing and abortion. But then it throws this in there. Our consensus is not that integrated information theory and its variants decidedly lack intellectual merit. Okay, there's your disclaimer. But with so much at stake, it is essential to provide a fair and truthful perspective on the status of the theory. I don't even disagree with that, but I don't think that they are doing that. I don't think this is a fair and truthful perspective on the status of the theory, calling it pseudoscience. And I think that it's wrong. And I still say that. As researchers, we have a duty to protect the public. Anytime they say this, it just means that they don't like it. They don't like what they hear. They don't want you to hear it. I remember when I presented my theory to some physics discords, and it was banned. And I talk about this in my Theory of Everything, the How-To Guide video. And the reason given for me being banned, even though others had presented fundamental theories as well, and my theory wasn't even a theory at the point. It was just work. It was just work that I thought was relevant to geometric unity and other theories that were out there. And so I was presenting it. I didn't have any aspiration at the time to be, the guy with the theory. I was just like, hey guys, this is my work and it seems to be in alignment with what is being said in this fundamental theory of Wolfram and this fundamental theory of Weinstein. And this with the CTMU. That's it. Banned. And I remember somebody asked the mods, why was that guy banned? When we have other people coming in here with fundamental theories, even though mine wasn't a laid out, labeled theory at that point. And the mod said that he had a duty to protect the server. And that from misinformation, and that I was going to confuse people because I was being too eloquent and convincing. That's like saying that something that's unfalsifiable, therefore, we should dismiss it. It's like, couldn't that mean that it's always true? Like, why would you ban something that is too convincing? Unless you didn't like what the implications would be. And this is exactly what's happening here. And it's not even that I don't find it too convincing, but like I understand why the materialists would start to see this integrated information theory is too convincing. And, but then it says, with so much, it's not that we don't think integrated information theory and its variants lack intellectual merit or decidedly lack intellectual merit, but with so much at stake, it is essential to provide a fair and truthful perspective on the status of the theory. As researchers, we have the duty to protect the public from scientific misinformation. Because it has panpsychist implications, because it has moral implications. It has implications of that undermine the orthodoxy of academia. It's funny. On my website, I just recently saw this, and I had forgotten that this was even on there. But if you go to my website, sentientsingularity.com, and the bottom says this, subscribe for updates. The implications of this work undermine many academic and institutional narratives. Academia and other institutions will always attempt to suppress ideas that undermine their message. With all the censorship taking place, please subscribe below so that you can keep up to date with the latest developments. The truth wins, but we can help that happen by staying in touch. You don't have to sign up, but I highly suggest that you do, and I'd appreciate it. I've not even sent a single email out to the list, but I am deeply appreciative of everybody who has signed up for the email list. I'm not here to spam you, but I do see where this is. I saw where this was going. In what was happening when I was presenting my work. It was exactly what's now happening to integrated information theory. This is just the beginning, guys. This is not the end of this. This was not a one-off. Conscious agent theory, the CTMU, sentient singularity theory, possibly geometric unity, possibly Wolfram's work. All of these are going to face, or could face, the same exact issues that integrated information theory is facing. Whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Because it's not about being right or wrong. That's not what this letter is about. This letter is about the fact that this theory and certain implications regarding theories like it, that are common to theories like it, what those impacts would be on the academic establishment. That's what it's about. It has actually almost nothing to do with integrated information theory. It has nothing to do with the specificities of its work, or even the specificities of its implications over, the specificities of it over sentient singularity theory, or it over conscious agent theory, or it over the CTMU. It's about the general implications that consciousness is fundamental, and that implies that there are moral implications that must be, lead to the rigorous revisitation of our current approaches to them. Like, that's what it's about. And if consciousness is fundamental, then our entire academic establishment was wrong for 50 years. 50 years. They know that's what that means. And they cannot have that be true. Like, they just can't. I don't know what this leads to, but like I said, this is the beginning. They will do anything to stop this from being shown. This type of stuff from being shown. They don't want this impacting any laws, and I'm not even saying that it should. They don't want this impacting, how we even think about our own actions and how we think about the actions of others, and just how we think about actions, certain actions. They don't want that. They don't want it to be shown, even if it is true, that they were the context of everything that they have told us and that has come from, the scientific establishment, the narrative that has come from the scientific establishment for decades and decades and decades at this point is wrong. That the context of it is wrong. They don't want it. And even if some of them are going to be brave, and some of them will, and they'll be like, guys, we were wrong. Like, this theory of conscious agent theory, this theory of integrated information theory, this theory of sentient singularity theory, or whatever, like, these theories are actually proving out to be confirmed. And the patterns of these theories is proving out to be confirmed in many instances, and be useful and observable. And some of them will be like that, but the majority will not. And I have no idea where this goes, because somebody had said to me in our Discord discussion this past week, friend of mine had said that this is the equivalent of basically being heretical against, the current religion. And he's right. And another friend of mine said that that the people who fail to embrace kind of any movement on these ideas, if even if they are end up being confirmed in many instances, and if it appears to be that sentience is fundamental, they still refuse to go down that way. He was like, they're like the modern equivalents of the Luddites. And I was like, yeah, that's true. He's right. And this is I don't want to say it's uncharted, but it is different in the context now versus because of the lack of scripture in science compared to religions. It does change potentially how this is going to go, but it might not at all, but the motivations are the same. That's true. It's crazy, but I've been saying it. This is where this is going to be the biggest hurdle of science ever. People act like, overcoming theism was the biggest hurdle. Pfft. We never overcame it. It's back. And, Stephen Meyer wrote a book, and I haven't read it, and I actually don't agree with the way that he argues for theism. Usually I think he argues that science has not answered many questions that are key, and therefore theism. And I actually think that that's not the right way to do this. There is actually logical arguments for theism that are very strong, but much simpler. But at the same time, he wrote this book called Return of the God Hypothesis. And I love the title. That's what we're seeing here, guys. With all of these theories. Conscious agent theory, the CTMU, sentient singularity theory, etc. Even integrated information theory, even if it's not what it is actually stating, it's what we are implying from its base assumptions. It's the return of the God hypothesis. And they don't want that. Oh my gosh, there's so much in the chat. If you have any questions specifically for me, please tag me in it. It's getting to be kind of tough to stick with it. Tyler should accept that integrated information theory actually helps his overall framework for the theory of everyone, Tyler, or sentient singularity theory. Mr. Goldstein may not like that to share credit. Ironic given the sentiment of the theory of everyone. That's not true. That's not true. I do know that it helps. It helps the narrative that I am putting forward. And it's just that there are basic aspects of it that are specific to it that I don't agree with. But I don't. It's not that I don't want to share credit. That has nothing to do with this. There are other theories that I think are more, kind of just more coherent a little bit. Like conscious agent theory, I think is a little bit more coherent. Like it's not, and I recognize that helps me. I want all of these theories put out there. And if you watch my Theories of Everything, the How-To Guide video, I specifically asked the question, are all of these fundamental theories competitors or not? And I said no. I don't think that they are. I think that they do, exactly as you state, help each other, help confirm each other, and help contextualize each other. I think sentient singularity theory can help confirm some aspects of integrated information theory, and integrated information theory can help confirm some aspects of sentient singularity theory, and sentient singularity theory can help provide some more context to geometric unity, and geometric unity can probably help, with some things in Wolfram's work. I'm for all of these theories. I don't think that they are competitors like everybody else thinks. I am not against any of these. The only theories that I am against are the theories that put forth the idea that inanimate matter is fundamental. That is against sentient singularity theory. That I will argue against. I'll argue against specifics regarding integrated information theory, but I'm not actually against the general idea. And or many of the general ideas, at least the ones that are criticized by this letter. I agree with those. What I don't agree with is when many theories are asking about, like, you know, it's kind of tough because I have to present my framework in order to make sense of why I disagree with this. But when we're asking about how conscious something is, I think the most important thing to recognize is, first, is it conscious or not? And anything that is conscious must be self-aware. And so we've already reached that level. And I think that the levels of consciousness are more objective than they are subjective. Or more, they're more periodic than they are kind of gradual and relativistic. That's what I'm disagreeing with that's some of what I disagree with integrated information theory. But I'm not against it. And this has nothing to do with sharing credit. I would admit I'm a human being and there's ego, that I have an ego like everybody else, but this wasn't a goal of mine to start. So just there is that, like, that matters a lot, actually, I think. Like, I didn't even want to say my theory until I recognized that I think there was that we needed a name that fundamentally described what is the nature and structure of existence. And I don't think that we had one. Not within even integrated information theory. It's not as fundamental as sentient singularity theory. The term is not. But that doesn't make it wrong just because it's not as fundamental. We have steps to go to. Even if let's just say a sentient singularity theory is correct, you know, if that's the case, there are steps to go through, like you said, and maybe one of those steps is integrated information theory, or geometric unity, or conscious agent theory, that term is the closest to mine. And it's not as specific because conscious is not as specific as sentient, but it's very close. It's very close. There's no other theory out there that has a name that is as close to describing the fundamental nature of existence other than sentient singularity theory besides conscious agent theory. Conscious agent theory would be second. And that doesn't make it wrong. It's correct. Conscious agent theory as a theory of fundamental existence is that it is a conscious agent and made of conscious agents. Fundamentally, that is correct. I'm not stating that theory is false. It's not. That idea is correct. So, I don't even think this is about sharing anything. This is about I think a lot of these theories, their fundamental structures, and base, assumptions are correct. I don't think conscious agent theory is wrong. I think it's mostly correct. I think geometric unity is mostly correct. None of our models within our theories are completely correct. I'm sure that some of us have made some errors, probably, but I'd like to see the CTMU be recognized as true. I'd like to see geometric unity be recognized as true, if it is, Same thing with conscious agent theory, same thing with even integrated information theory. But integrated information theory is a little bit materialistic in a weird way. It is. It kind of starts with matter and then tries to determine whether or not that material structure would be conscious. That's my issue with it. When it's like, it makes assumptions like a brain is conscious. It's like a brain is not conscious according to my work. So that's my disagreement. No opposition to IIT integrated information theory is saying that all humans are created equal. It is akin to being a race realist or something. Opposition to integrated information theory is saying that not all humans is created equal. I have to think about what you're saying because I'm not exactly sure. It means that some humans are better than others. You saying integrated information theory states that? Because that is against my work. But hey, all just got caught up with current live, started about 15 minutes ago. Listening to Tyler monologue always helps me get ready for sleep. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'll take it as a good thing. Positivism. Since this one's a bit later than usual, might actually be the case for me tonight. Yep. Okay, let's see here. I wonder why the UN Security Council hasn't visited Tyler yet and asked him to write a draft on how to establish world peace. Clearly a 21st century prophet. I'm not going to say that I'm a prophet, but that's up. Who is a prophet and who is not is up to God. That's what I'll say. So, and I hope that the UN doesn't visit me, but maybe that'd be a good thing. Maybe not. I don't know. But to find number of signees, since names aren't written as last first, you can just copy paste the names into a word processor. Yeah. What's up, guys? What's up, memes? Real story about this letter is that it is a psyop, and the fact that it is being taken seriously and not as a psyop is interesting to me. It's like believing the 9/11 Commission report. I think that the reason why it's being taken seriously, and you know, I thought about that too, is like, should we even take these people seriously? And I don't. I'm just, you know, because I don't actually think that we can go through the academic establishment with these new types of theories. I think that everybody with these new, you know, consciousness-based fundamental theories needs to start their own new kind of organizations, I guess, but like organically. And I think that that's happening, to be honest. And I think it's the only way that we can. And we can't try and convince these people. We can just wait for some of them to be convinced, and the rest can be, you know, wait for the waters to crash, you know. And that's it. And I don't believe we need to argue with them, but I just do believe that it's important to explain why we're gonna fail to convince them honestly. Like, we're gonna have to leave out key context to our theories that we cannot, if we're gonna, you know, otherwise they're gonna be misinterpreted even worse than they would already, and they and you don't want that, and or they're not going to be able to be understood. I think that we can see that with some of these theories already being proposed, is that some people are leaving out key contexts of their theory because they don't want the anti-theists to disregard their work as nonsense. But it makes their theories incomprehensible. And but it's important to know why we would fail at convincing the established institution. We have to start our own organic, or if we have to let it start organically. I am a little bit concerned about an institution being linked to education that is about fundamental reality. I think that that could be, there's certainly problems that could come from that, but that might be inevitable anyways, you know. But I do think that we should not try and convince the establishment. I've never sent my theory to like a physics professor or anything like that. I've posted within physics groups early on because I had to learn this lesson, but I wasn't ever sending my work because at that point it wasn't a theory of mine. It was just like, we were talking about somebody else's theories, actually. We were talking about Wolfram and Weinstein. Or Weinstein. And but I was not trying to convince people of my theory because I didn't have a theory. And since I've never sent my work to any physicist or anything like that, trying to convince them of it. And I have friends who are respected, physicists in the establishment. And there's no point in me trying to convince them for many reasons. One, I don't have accreditations that they're going to care about. And two, I just don't see the point. Like, why would that matter? If you need somebody with accreditation in the mainstream, which you think that their main narrative, fundamental narrative is false, to endorse your work, then it's just most likely going to be misinterpreted anyways, even if it is adopted. If it's adopted, it's most likely going to be because somebody endorsed it. It's like, that's not evidence. I don't want those people endorsing my work because somebody just who they believe in endorsed it. That's just not helpful. It's not. They don't understand it. I want people to understand it, even if it's a very small amount. Because I do think that, the perspectives that come from sentient singularity theory main, implications are good. And that's, I think that can impact us for the good. They're not going to save the world. I mean, God saves the world, and that is implied in sentient singularity theory. But sentient singularity theory, I don't think saves the world, but God does. And but recognizing that God does and that you can't, even if you can help people, you can help people. You can help yourself. You can help people, but you can help God. But like, you can't save the world and switch the establishment towards, to be all of a sudden logical and positive and enlightened. It's not going to happen by you or by me. And but there's good in even knowing that. So that's part of what the message was tonight. It's like, we're not going to succeed in convincing the establishment to admit that they were fundamentally wrong in the context of everything that they present to the public. Just not. And that's okay. So, but that doesn't mean that we abandon, speaking the truth. Never. So, monkeys are one up from me, dropping the Amazon, and I'm toast. Consciousness is fundamental. Et fundamental. I don't know. Is fundamental? Is that what that means? Could probably help the theory of universal one as well. Yeah, I mean, the universe, uni, is one. One of my friends is a physics professor. I had him look at your work, but all he said was he didn't like your math. Okay, what does that mean? I wonder what of my math he didn't like. My math is like easy math. It's like 1 divided by 3. It's like, what don't you like about that? I don't know. But anyways, I think that's it. Please hit the like button. Really does help fuel the algorithm. The link to the letter is below. A link to my Theories of Everything, the how-to guide video, which I think is very important as well, is below. Next week, we will do kind of a longer stream on some other discussions that are very good that I've been seeing. But I wanted to just speak briefly about this because I've been saying that this was going to be an issue for a long time, and it's pretty obvious that that's the case. So, but with that, thank you everyone. I really appreciate it. I know it was later than usual. We've had a weird schedule here lately. I think that should be ending pretty soon, but I'm also about to have a child pretty soon, inshallah, and that will definitely make schedules weird potentially. So we'll see. But I am committed to continuing the streams as consistently as I can. So just bear with the weird times sometimes. But with that, thank you and peace.